In a world that is filled with filters and masks, we want to give you an unfiltered experience. Welcome to Soté.
Yes, Salt of the Earth podcast, a Christian podcast where we teach you how to apply the Word of God with wisdom into your everyday lives. If you're ready to take off the filters and learn how to be the salt of the earth, stay tuned to Soté. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Soté.
Yep.
We're excited to have you. This is episode 3.
Yeah.
And Temi,
How you doing? Are you feeling blue? See what I did?
that is so corny. You really thought about that one hard. You're like,
No, I thought about it. I was gonna say when you came in, but I was like, let me save it.
This is showtime. I told you.
Let me save it for.
Always save it for the cameras.
That's how.
It's not real.
You know what I thought about? I was like, that's how some Christian brothers are. Be corny and then they're like, I can't find a wife. That's why you can't find a wife. Hey man.
Oh man. Wow, that's you just.
No. I'm not saying. I didn't say everyone. I'm just saying. As a Christian brother, you know.
So they shouldn't be corny. Is that the advice you're giving? As a grandpa,
no,
they're going to take your advice seriously.
Some people like corny, so whatever floats the boat of
I've been told I'm quite corny, so that's why I thought it was hilarious.
You see, whatever floats your... Exactly. So if someone...
But yeah, if it's, I don't know. It can be cringy too, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not feeling blue. I'm good.
Okay.
Oh, how are you?
I'm good. I'm hungry.
Oh yeah, I'm a little bit hungry. I was waiting
for me to say it
you
first.
know, yeah, because you're always hungry on the podcast.
No.
At some point,
I mean, it's not easy now.
I should not live by bread alone. So
alone, not just bread.
Oh,
so it means we still need to eat bread.
So it's important to make the bread first or eat the bread.
So funny enough, I'm trying to cut back on bread, it's been tough. Because bread is like my favorite food.
The
like,
carbs
just bread.
Just bread in general.
Yeah. Because I don't know. It's just I want to see what life is like without bread.
Without bread?
Yeah.
That's a hard life. Wasn't manna basically bread?
Hey, man,
you try to live a soft life. That's not the way.
That's the thing. Sometimes I try to switch up my. I don't want to say switch up my diet, but there's some things that I cut back on.
Yeah,
you know, just to exercise discipline and all.
Yeah, that's
I mean, it's
good.
not like as if I'm cutting out bread for life. Like, I don't know. That's gonna take.
That's a lot.
That's going to take a revelation from God. Like, hey, thou shalt not eat bread anymore.
That's breakfast. That's lunch. You know, some garlic bread. That's dinner.
So it's crazy because when you start to, I guess, watch what you eat, that's when you now realize that we are just basically eating the same thing.
Yeah,
and it's like. We don't even have food.
Yeah, that's like me with rice. I can't imagine cutting out rice.
As a Nigerian, like cutting out rice is just not even just a Nigerian, but like rice is like a staple.
Culture,
it's like a staple in so many diets. In so many cultures, I mean.
Yeah.
And it's just like, damn. So if I cut out bread, it's like I can't even eat. Like there's so many things it goes with that you can't eat by itself. Yeah. And it's like so I just eat eggs. I mean, I'm not the type of person that just eats eggs.
Yeah. Oatmeal. Oatmeal and egg sounds weird.
Yeah, it sounds weird. Exactly. But hey, I didn't say it, you did. And so it's just like
I mean, it helps you be more creative because you'll have to find an alternative. Yeah. So have you started your bread journey?
I've been starting and stopping.
Oh,
let's put it that way. But I mean, so the thing is, it's just. I mean, I just try not to take too much.
Yeah,
now, I try not to take too much. So.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Well. But then that's when you also realize that it's so many things like pizza. Now, if I was to have pizza, it's bread. Or to have a sandwich, that's bread.
Right, yeah.
It's like, so I can't really eat those things
anymore.
Yeah.
What about like wheat bread or like healthier versions?
Yeah, I mean, so it's not even about the
bread,
the variety or what type it is. I just wanted to see.
Okay. Well, good luck on your journey. I'll be enjoying my bread.
Thank you.
But we're not talking about bread today.
Nope, not in any way. It's so funny.
But we are going to be talking about living in a Christian household. Like, what is that like? what have we learned from that? What are the benefits?
Yeah.
I don't think there's non-benefits.
Yeah. You don't think so?
You think there's disadvantages of it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
There's always.
Okay, I'll be optimistic. You could be.
No. I don't even mean disadvantages. Yeah, there could be some disadvantages though, depending on.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we'll delve into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's what we're talking about today, guys.
Living in a Christian household.
Tell me, give us a little insight. What was your life living in a Christian household?
Man, it was so. It's the best thing that could ever happen to.
Oh, that's great.
I guess me or to an individual, I think, because especially when it's done right.
Yeah.
So that's the caveat. That's why I said that there could be disadvantages.
Yeah.
So when it's done right, like if your parents are truly pursuing Christ and then they are also discipling or disciplining their children to also know and recognize that, Christ is King, then the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages. Right. Yeah. And so it was wonderful, man. I was literally born in the church. Well, not literally born in the church. I was in, but yeah, man, I grew up in the church, spent time in the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a church kid.
Church boy.
You even have it special, right? You are more.
I'm not special.
Yeah, because I'm
a special possession. So yes, I guess I'm a special. But
I would love to actually hear from your perspective, because me, I'm just a.
Don't
I'm just a regular church kid.
I'm still a regular.
You are like a senior
no,
church
not
kid.
in any way.
No, it's because I feel like sometimes though it's like the expectations may be different.
Oh
like,
yeah.
The expectation is different.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Me, I'm just out here living my life.
Yeah, nobody even sees you.
Nobody sees me. Nobody expects anything. Oh, for people to get context. So her parents, she's a PK, by the way. She's a pastor's kid, so that's why.
Yeah.
Because people are like wondering, like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Because the expectation for you as a pastor's kid is just like me. I can just be like, not in a bad way, but I can just literally be.
Yeah.
I don't have to serve.
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything. Technically,
right? If you don't want to, unless your parents are like more committed. Yeah.
But for you, it's like
that's not even a thing I ever thought about. Like,
wow. So you see. So that's why I'm saying that there could be some disadvantages in that way. It's like now it's like the child isn't even pursuing God for God,
right?
And it just becomes a day-to-day thing that they do, and then which is why I think there's a disadvantage, because when they now get independence, and now it's like in rebellion.
Oh yeah,
I don't want to do this anymore because this is what I've been doing my whole life.
Exactly,
because they didn't find any purpose or any joy in doing it. Right, and so that's what I think disadvantages.
Right, that's a great perspective. Yeah. So growing up, before my parents even became pastors or anything, they were missionaries. So I started.
I was gonna say, oh, you were regular. I was gonna say, oh, so you were part of the regular kids.
I wish.
But then you took it up.
So from the moment I was born, like literally
oh man,
Temi's just enjoying that.
No. It's funny because I was going to be like, oh man, so now
like I had some time, before they became pastors.
She was part of the regular kids,
but
then she was like, so before my parents became pastors, they were actually missionaries. I was like,
they were preaching the gospel. Okay. They were traveling pastors.
Yeah, wonderful. I feel like you even got demoted. But anyways, let me stop joking.
But yeah, literally, like, I was in my mother's room as she was on the mission field. So like from the second I was born, like I was out there doing missions with my parents. And so, yeah, like I don't think there was ever a time where like I had that mindset of like, oh, I'm not being watched or their expectations are not high. Because imagine you're a missionary and then your children are like not showing what you're preaching. Like that's not a good look. And so that pressure, whether it was, imposed knowingly or unknowingly, like it was there, from a very young age. And so then fast forward to like, when I got older, I'm like, I'm in the youth church or children's church. Now like my parents are like more in a pastoral position. It was like, okay, now you can't really like, because before like you could say like, okay, I'm in this city or this country for a little bit and then we're leaving. So whatever I do, nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to follow up on it, you know. But now it's like, okay, you're in this church. You're supposed to be growing in Christ. And like, you now have these aunties and these uncles that are basically your second parents and they're watching you when your parents' eyes aren't on you. And so like that pressure was like increased even more. And I think growing up, like, I wasn't the type where I was like, oh, I'm just going to rebel against the pressure. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to, you know, stay quiet, stay in the corner, not do too much, do what's expected of me. But with that, like, I didn't really know what my purpose was, or I wasn't really like doing living life to the fullest potential of what God wanted it to be, because I was like, I'm already overwhelmed with the little that they're making me do. I'm not going to strive for more than that. And I was very timid and shy because I was really scared of, you know, breaking the rules or getting in trouble because, you know, if there was just so much expectations that are put on you. And so, like you said, like by the time you finally get to that point where you're like, okay, now you're in college or like, you know, whatever age you start to feel like, oh, I have a little bit of freedom, you know, that temptation to be like, you know what, I'm just going to lay back. Like nobody's watching me. Nobody's expecting anything of me. I don't have to be perfect all the time. Oh, man, like I'm just going to go on the whole other extreme. So that was like, I was like on the whole other extreme, but I definitely made a lot of mistakes in college. And like, it was truly God's mercy that he just like drove me back. He was like, yeah, you going too far. And I have so many like, you know, things that I want you to do with your life. And so I got to a point where I was like, you know what, like I'm tired of running from God because I know him, you know, but I don't have a relationship with him. It wasn't like, oh, who is this God? Like, you know, what does he do? What does he mean? Like I knew all the things. I knew all the stories. I knew all the Bible stories. I knew everything that you could know about God instead, but I didn't know what it meant to actually have a relationship with him. And so there was many times where I was like having a whole identity crisis because I was like, man, like I have all these expectations that people put on me and what they want me to look like and how they want me to be, but who am I? You know, and I had to really like sit back and like talk to God. I'm like, God, like I don't like the shell of a person that I am. Like I really want to know who you created me to be and what my purpose is. And then when he started to show me my purpose, I was like, okay, this doesn't look like me. Like I'm way too shy. I'm scared. I don't like this. And so then I ran back to my hiding place, but it just kept like being shown on me. Like, this is who you are. This is what you're meant to do. This is your purpose. And I had to like at some point surrender because I was like, man, like if I don't, I'm not going to find any joy or fulfillment in my life. And I can't keep, you know, using things or people or just my environment to fill that void because nothing was enough, you know? And I think like once you finally get to that position, it's a very humbling experience because you think like, man, I know everything. Like I've been in Sunday school. I go to church all the time. I do this, I do that. And then when God really exposes you for who you are, you're like, man, I really don't know anything about this God. And then when you finally like surrender to him and have that, you know, true encounter with him and relationship with him, it's so freeing, you know? It's like, man, like, I don't have to be perfect in order for you to accept me. I don't have to do all the right things or say all the right things in order for you to love me. And, you know, being a PK, it definitely gives you that perspective of like, man, like, because people respect you more or they'll hold you to a higher standard the more that you do what they want you to do than like you just being yourself and making mistakes. Like, oh, how could you? You're a pastor. You know, but when God's like, you know, it's okay. Like, I still love you and I'm still here and I'm still going to be with you and I'm still going to guide you. Like, it's so refreshing to like know that and like walk in that and like live in that freedom. Yeah. Then now when people put those expectations on me, I'm like, give it up to God. Did God tell you that? Or like, you know, because I just don't allow that to like, you know, limit me anymore, especially when I'm living life contrary to like what people would have expected, you know, because I ended up like working full time in church and everything. A lot of people were like, what? Like, you did this and you went to school, you did that. Like, why aren't you doing this and that and that? And I'm like, did God tell you to do that? Like, you know, and following him fully, like, it gives me that peace of mind of knowing like this is where I'm supposed to be. And having that experience of like living life based on the expectations of others, you never want to go back to that. And so even no matter how much pressure people put on me now, I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm secure in where God has me. And I think like that is like a great advantage of like growing up in the church, like knowing that like, okay, no matter how far I stray, I have a praying mother who's like gonna make sure that I'm in line, you know, with God. And so I would say like, you know, the disadvantage is more of like the pressure that's put on you at such a young age, but then the advantage is knowing that like, you know, no matter how far you stray away, like you're still under the protection of your parents, but at some point you have to like take that leap for yourself and like know God for yourself. So yeah.
So much to unpack.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's really beautiful. And I think growing up in a Christian household, like the most important advantage, I guess what I was thinking of when you were talking is the fact that you even have an idea of God.
Yeah.
Like that alone is an advantage.
Yeah.
Because I like to speak to different people and like with different worldviews. And just let's even forget not even having a relationship with God. Yeah. But there are some things that just by knowing God alone, there are some things you would do and there are some things you wouldn't do. Right. And so just having that even fear or reverence that, you know, sometimes African parents will be like, if you do this, God is seeing you, or blah, 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 blah. And like you recognizing the consequences of certain actions alone helps protect you and helps shield you from like so many things or getting into so many things. And I think that's one of the, you know, great advantages of growing up in a Christian household. Now, if we now take it up a notch and saying not just growing up in a Christian household where you are aware of God, but a Christian household that fosters or encourages relationship with God. Right. Now that one obviously that's the best thing that could ever happen, because now it's not just that people are expecting. It's not just that you are doing things because people are expecting that you do them, but it's because you're doing these things because now you are trying to please God through your life. Right. And so that's why I think, and that's why I said I think that there's a disadvantage, because working with the youth, you know, we work with youth, right? You tend to see that sometimes people could do things for show. Right. You could be a good kid, you know, doing all the Bible recitals, doing all of the sword drills, doing all of these things. And people really think that, oh man, this is a good kid. But then when you get this ounce of independence and you go out to the real world, now your faith gets tested. Your faith gets tested. And like if you didn't really have a solid ground to stand on, you get exposed. And which is why I think we see a lot of so-called kids that grew up in Christian homes going off to college. And then it's like, what happened? The problem is that nothing happened. Real, like it wasn't real. And it's so crazy because when you suggested this topic, I was thinking about it and I was like, even sometimes the things, the behaviors or the characters we see in certain adults that have been in church for years and decades, could it just be that while they were growing up also, like there was never really that, I guess, growth in their relationship, and then people just always assume that, because I'm in church or I'm coming to church, that I'm growing in Christ. And so eventually, sometimes, because we work with youth, sometimes some parents may be like, oh, my kids, why are they acting this way, or blah, blah, blah. When they're in church, they're all good, but when they're outside of church, they're not good. And it makes me question, like, okay, like, are they even growing? Like, do they even know the importance of the things that they do, or is it just tradition for them? Right. And that's why I said that there could be a disadvantage this is where the disadvantage is that if growing up in a Christian household, if your parents don't model Christ, then it just becomes a religion. And so that's why I think, yes, there are advantages to it, but the disadvantages are, like, if you don't model Christ, like if your parents don't model Christ, then it's hard for you to want to believe in this God, right? That your parents go to church every Sunday to worship, but then you don't even see Christ in them. And I think that's sometimes a lot of the problems that youths have, is that a lot of times they just don't see Christ in their parents. In the way their parents treat them, in the way their parents relate with them. And so I think we really have to have that conversation, you know, as adults, as children, you know, that, okay, how are we raising children? Or like, I don't know. I'm not yet a parent. So I don't know how it is.
Yeah, but like, I mean, it's just, I think about that a lot too, of like, man, like I could be living my life right, doing all the right things as a parent. And, you know, my children could be the ones straying away and like just doing things the wrong way. And it's like, man, like I've taught you, I've led you the right way, I've discipled you. And like, what's wrong? Like, what am I missing? What am I doing wrong? You know, like, for example, I think of David, like in the Bible, and like his children, and like how, like, he was known as a man after God's heart, but then his children, like, it was just crazy. Like, and I'm just like, how do you go from, man, you're a man after God's heart, to having children that are just so wayward and like just far away from God in their actions?
You mean David or Eli?
David, like, you know how like Absalom was literally like trying to take over, and like sleeping with his concubines.
You're
and like,
Bible scholar, sorry. I'm sorry.
You know, but then also like you could also see it as like, you know, he did do that whole thing with Bathsheba, and it's like whatever you don't kill in you, and then you go and have children, it can get passed down.
Yeah, that's true.
Even if you are elevating in your faith and like you're growing and all those things, but whatever those little boxes that are still laying around, it can then affect your children down the line. And so, like I think that's a really like deep thing to think about. Is like, man, like, am I living a life not just for me, but like for the people that are coming after me?
Yeah, that's
like
true.
These things that I'm still struggling with, or I'm still dealing with, is this something that I want to pass down? And if it's not, like, it needs to go. Like, it needs to go. And then also, like, who are you marrying? Because you could have been like, okay, I'm actually actively working on killing all these things, but then your spouse is not, you know, doing the same, and then that still passes down onto your children. And it's like how sometimes, you know, fathers are like, you know, preachers are like, they get into all these scandals of like affairs and all this stuff, and it's like the wife was, you know, she was loyal, she was committed, she was all these things, but then like he's just completely on the whole other side, and he's supposed to be like this pastor that's leading the sheep and guiding, and then you then see that it affects the children down the line. It's like, so it's not just what I'm learning, you know, more and more about this walk with God is like, it's about you, but it's not about you all the time. You know, like it really is about those around you and those that come after you. And so sometimes we think like, oh, like this is it. Because, you know, in the whole world, they're like, oh, if it's not hurting anybody, it's okay. Yeah, it may not be hurting anybody right now, but who is it going to hurt later?
Of course.
You know, so.
Yeah, that's interesting, man.
Yeah.
That's and I like the example you gave about, you know, maybe fathers, and how, not just even fathers, but how, I guess, the way we live our lives and express our faith or manifest our faith influences people that are around us. And I think that's very true because, and I think we need to put emphasis on, you know, spiritual, having godly character. Yeah. Like God is not just pleased because you can pray 50 hours or because you can speak in tongues, because you can raise the dead, or because you can heal the sick or heal the blind. Like, having godly character also matters, because if we're to be, or if we're made in the image of God, he also has a character of holiness, of integrity. Those things are also important. Those things are important because people are able to see the gospel through our lives. And people are also, even before you speak a word, people should know that, man, this person is different. The way he loves is different. The way he treats people equally is different. And so I think those are things that, you know, we need to put emphasis on sometimes. And even as a parent, I can see that helping you raise your children well. I think, you know, people always say that, you know, children don't respond to what you say, but what you do. And it's so funny because we think that, oh, if I tell my child to do this, right, and I do this other thing, he's going to obey me. Like, or he or she is going to obey me. Like, I don't think it works that way. Like, children would do what they see, which is why even before they start talking, before they start walking or doing anything, what they see you do is what they begin to model. And so if they see you hate, that's what they do. They just hate. If they see you love, they just grow up to be loving children. Which is why I think, okay, growing up in a Christian home, if done right, is the best thing that could ever happen. But now, if it is not really done right, and obviously nobody is perfect, right? People make mistakes. But even in that mistake, how you handle those circumstances or situations also, if done right, helps your children get closer to God. And so I don't know, it's a very weird dynamic. Not weird, but it's a very complex topic I would say.
Right. Yeah.
But I think, if truthfully, if everything were to be in order for how God wants it to be, it talks about headship in the Bible. When Paul was teaching, it says that for Christ is the man is the head of the man, and the man the head of the wife, and then the children. I feel like if there's that alignment, right? Christ being the head, followed by the father, the mother, and then the children. Like everything, like life is simple. I feel like sometimes life is really
back to obedience.
I feel like sometimes life is really simple.
Yeah.
And if everybody were just to fall in line, like under God, that everything would just be perfect.
Exactly.
But I mean, I do agree. Growing up in a Christian home is wonderful. And one thing or one perspective that I will also want us to talk about is sometimes, because there's this temptation that, man, you are being constrained to not do certain things. There's this temptation because sometimes even growing up in a Christian home, maybe you're not allowed to go and have sleepovers or do certain things depending on how your parents are. Right? You may feel like as if, oh man, I don't get to enjoy the world.
You're missing out.
And it's funny because a lot of children who maybe were raised in Christian homes, especially even it's those pastors' children, man. Especially pastors' children, it's like once they get like an ounce of freedom, right? It's like they just go all out and do whatever it is that they want to do. But I think understanding that, man, it's even a form of God's protection, that you don't get to expose yourself to certain things. Because there are some things that you don't even want to expose yourself to. Honestly, when I was thinking about it, I was like, man, there are some things that I'm grateful that I didn't even have the opportunity to do. Because then think about, and this was what the Holy Spirit taught me. It's like, if you're in a place where you are thinking, oh man, my parents are strict, or they don't want me to do this, they don't want me to enjoy life. To God, right, those things that you call enjoying life is like cancer.
Yes.
And so now imagine you now telling yourself that, oh man, let me just go taste a little bit of this cancer. Right? To you, it may seem good, and that's what the devil makes it seem like. It makes it seem like as if it's good. But the reason God doesn't permit it, or God has allowed your parents or because at the end of the day, your parents are responsible for you, regardless of what you think, right? Because they're going to give an account to God. And so through God's leading and inspiration, they make certain decisions concerning your life. And so if you feel like, oh man, this is just bondage, and I know sometimes parents may overdo it, but if it is if it's God's will or God's instruction, then they are not overdoing it, is what I believe. And so now in your eyes, you're thinking, oh man, this cancer, which could be partying, drinking, being promiscuous and all of these things, these are cancers. But what the devil makes it seem like is, oh man, this is living life. This is being youthful.
It's fun.
It's fun. Youthful lust. That's what the Bible calls it. And so when you expose yourself to that cancer, what happens? It begins to spread. And then eventually down the line, after it has dominated the entire cells, now it's so hard for you to kill that cancer. And that's why at the end of the day, people go through life experiencing some things that God never wanted them to experience. And now God now has to do the hard work. God now has to do the hard work of trying to renew those experiences. When in the first place, if you didn't even expose yourself to certain things, like you wouldn't, like, so that in itself alone is like a protection. And I'm speaking to like maybe anyone who may be in that kind of quote unquote, it seems like a cage, that God is caging you, doesn't want you to do what may be considered worldly or what may be considered fun. Like, don't see it as prison, man. See it as a beautiful thing, because like, just like as in the physical, you wouldn't want to have cancer growing in your body. Just see it as that way. Like, there's certain diseases that you wouldn't even want in your soul. There's certain things you wouldn't want your soul to experience, because once your soul experiences some terrible things, like, there's no going back. And even if there's going back, now you have to do so much work, to cure that disease. So stay in the confinement that God has.
Listen to your parents.
Of course, man. It says listen to your parents, or the children obey your parents. In the Lord, for this is good. So,
I think it's like being okay with not being cool. I think like at that young age, like, the pressure is so strong of like, man, I want to fit in. I want to like be part of the cool kids. I want to be all these things. And now that I'm older and I look back at like, you know, my classmates and like people that I grew up with, and just seeing like how drastically different our lives look and how it's been. Like I had one of them, I was talking to him a while back, and he was like, man, like every time I see you, it just reminds me of like all the mistakes that I've made, because he's like completely like, you know, just gone down the wrong way. Yeah. And in school, it was like, man, he was the coolest person in school. Like everybody wanted to be like him. Yeah. But the scriptures are true. Like whatever you sow, that's what you're gonna reap. Like if you waste your youth, you know, doing things that are only gonna lead to destruction down the line, those consequences one day will finally meet up with you. And I think like the danger with being young is that you don't see those consequences right away. You know, if I'm drinking, if I'm smoking, if I'm partying, if I'm doing all these things, in the moment it's fun, and okay, I get a hangover, oh, I throw up, oh, this, oh, that. It's not until later when you start getting lung cancer or all these different things that start coming up in your health or just like in life, they're like, man, like this is what this all leads to. Like this isn't fun, this isn't worth it. But when you're young, you don't see those consequences. So it's like so important to like have mentors, have people who either made those mistakes or have gone through that path, or know people who've gone through that path, and learning from them to see that like, no, like this is what I had to go through just to, you know, work on these things that I shouldn't have even found myself in doing anyways. Like don't make the same mistake as me, or don't make the same mistake as this person that I know, you know. But yeah, it's like not everybody is smart enough to avoid those mistakes. And it's sad, you know, like you said, like us that work with youth, like you see it all the time. I'm like, man, like this is not the right way. This is not the right path. Like I'm trying to teach you, and you're like, nah, I know what I'm doing. And it's like all you can do at that point is just pray for them, especially when they don't want to listen, you know, because you can't control anybody.
Of course. Man, working with youth it's been one of the most, I guess, eye-opening thing on how hard it is to be a parent. Yeah. Bruh, because I'll be thinking, I'm like, damn, man, it's really not easy to be.
At some point, I'm like, oh, God.
I think I'm good. I think I'm good on the parenthood, man. Because
I just give up, like.
For real, man.
It requires a lot of patience.
Yeah, and also it kind of exposes you to see how much work you need to do as a parent. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes, I mean, no shade to any parent or any, but I feel like sometimes, I mean, it's not easy to, let's be honest, because it's work. Yeah. Parenthood is work. Yeah. And it's just crazy. Like the Holy Spirit has just been teaching me and be opening up my eyes to see that. Yeah. Like when you become a parent, it's work. Yeah. But that work is not going to be done then. Right. The work starts from now, who you are as a man. Exactly. And so that's why I said this is where it gets complex, because sometimes people grow up with this idea that, oh man, I'll enjoy my youth to do whatever I want to do. When I get married, it's just going to change. Right. It's not just going to change. Like there's a reason why you know, you grew up doing God's work as a youth, and then that's what you continue to do when you're older. And there's a reason why you don't grow up doing God's work, and then when you get older, you have no reverence for God. Because why? We are creatures of habit. Exactly. The things you build on now are who you become later in the future. Right. And so like God has just been opening my eyes to see that, okay, you see how, okay, you desire, and sometimes we'll be desiring all these great things. Oh man, I want my children, even though I don't have children now, I want my children to fear the Lord. I want my children to know the Lord. And the Holy Spirit is like, how are you going to teach them to fear the Lord? How are you going to teach them to know the Lord? The only way you're going to teach them is by you fearing the Lord and by you knowing the Lord. Yeah. The Bible said of Abraham, it says, for I know Abraham, he will command his household to follow the Lord. And so I know it's crazy because especially as a man, the responsibility seems a little bit more. It may seem a little bit more. Yeah. And but I think it kind of helps or put things into perspective, and helps me even in my own Christian walk or even my Christian faith to understand that, like you said rightfully, the choices I make, the decisions I make, is not just for me. It doesn't just affect me. It affects my family, the family that I don't even yet have. I don't even yet know. And so similarly for the woman of God, the choices you make also affects the family that you don't even yet have. And so, man, I think sometimes living in the future a bit helps. Like just take a peek and be like, okay, before I make this choice or decision, who is it going to affect? How is it going to affect my future? Yeah. Right? I think that helps sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, man,
Yeah.
Parenthood, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the parents.
Yeah.
To all
you
the
guys
parents
are doing amazing. Shout out to our parents.
Yeah, shout out to our
for dealing with us.
For real.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this episode about growing up in a Christian household. If you had similar experiences to us, definitely tell us in the comments, like, what did you see as an advantage? What did you see as a disadvantage? Or even if you didn't grow up in a Christian household, what's your perspective on that? And how did you grow up in that? And like, what were your, what did you learn from that perspective? But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Soté. You can follow us on Instagram. You can subscribe to our channel on YouTube. They're all Soté Podcast, CKP. We're also on Spotify as well if you want to listen to our beautiful voices.
Only's beautiful voice. Not mine.
And Temi's handsome voice. Okay, there you go. Can't call me handsome.
You don't have to be generous. It's okay, I'll take it.
But yeah, guys, stay tuned. Stay tuned. We have way more episodes coming up in the future. And until next time, stay tuned to Soté.